to talk and give you these tips on how to be a good friend, how to be a better friend. Maybe it's how to be a new friend.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's how to overcome your loneliness, because
right.
in order to overcome your loneliness, here's the first point for you, or to be a better friend, you have to put yourself out there. And that is so challenging for so many of us that we just sometimes don't do it, right? We stay stuck in our disappointment in our relationships because we feel like it's too hard to put ourselves out there.
Yeah, we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to get hurt again. But we have to put ourselves out there because scripture says, therefore, encourage one another and build each other up. This is a command. It's not saying, well, when you feel like it, then do it. No, it says, encourage one another. How do we do that if we don't even know how to talk to people?
Mm-hmm. And to put yourself out there. And, you might make all kinds of excuses in your head going like, yeah, well, this person hurt me and that person hurt me and they didn't really want to be my friend and they this and that and the other thing. Because that's what I do in my head, right? But we have to get over that. We have to push past those uncomfortable feelings and push past the barriers, and we have to put ourselves out there. And sometimes we have to do it more than one time. For the same person, right? You might have to reach out to somebody like 5 times before they will meet you for that coffee or before they will accept your invite to dinner. But, you've probably heard it said too, like, be the friend you wish you had.
That's a great
right?
line.
Like, it's kind of the same, treat other people how you want to be treated. And we want people who are willing to like go the extra mile for us, or who are willing to like really take the time to check in on us and care about us enough that, they might have to check in on you 4 or 5 times.
Because they need encouragement. I'm going to say we need encouragement. So right now, why don't you give us a like, put a comment in this under this YouTube video, do something so that you encourage us as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We also need that.
Subscribe to our channel because that will encourage us.
And if you don't know who we are, we're Ruth and Casey. We're a mother-daughter team. And we love talking about, real life issues that are going on in Christian lives.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to stretch yourself. You might feel uncomfortable. But like we always say, it's okay to feel uncomfortable.
Okay, but here's the other thing you might be asking yourself. Where do I even find people to put myself in front of and put myself out there, right? And so maybe you need to like join a group at your church. Maybe you need to join a Bible study, join an alpha program, join a who knows what, right? Get involved, right. Volunteer somewhere, find some people so that you're actually around some people. You might have lots of people in your workplace that would be potential people to be friends with or to be better friends with.
Well, you can go to the library, you can go to the coffee shop, you can go to the grocery store, you can talk to people anywhere because so many people are lonely and would love a conversation. And who knows, you might just find a friend. I'm going to say I went to a different service on Sunday. We usually go to the 11 o'clock service at our church. This last week we went to the 9 o'clock service and I put myself out there. And I talked to someone and we're going to meet for coffee. So I'm just going to say, sometimes we have to be uncomfortable. I didn't know this lady. She didn't know me, but we had a great conversation. And who knows what's going to become of it.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe you've got kids that are in activities and sports and stuff. And maybe you just sit there like a bump on a log with your phone, scrolling the whole time. And then you're surrounded by other people with kids the same age as you. And talk to them, right? Or
talking, what a concept.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to just sit and stare at our phones all the time, right? We can actually put them down and talk to people. The other thing, speaking of phones, there are actually lots of apps around where you can, like they're friendship apps to meet people, right?
That's right. It's called meetups too.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different ones. And so like there's options, but you have to look for them and you have to look for opportunities. I think that's the thing. We have to learn how to look for opportunities to put ourselves out there because they're everywhere. It's just whether or not we want to use them or not.
And then we have to build on the skills that we're talking about right now. And that is to be a good friend or a better friend.
Tip number 2 is that we have to give and take in relationships. Sometimes in relationships, especially if you've been friends with somebody for a long time or in a relationship for a long time, sometimes we end up in seasons where we take more and we take because we're going through something. Sometimes it's the other way around where somebody else is needing you to give. The thing is, relationships have to be two-sided. Otherwise, you're just going to get burnt out. And that doesn't mean that if somebody's in a hard season that you just go like, well, I'm not getting anything from this relationship, so out I go, because that's not being a good friend. but you need to find somebody who cares about you and that you care about, so that it is a give and take type of relationship.
Yeah, it really is a give and take relationship. And I'm going to say, like you just said, sometimes people don't reciprocate. But does that mean you just stop? I don't believe it does. I think you have to just keep putting yourself out there. Like point number one, put yourself out there. But sometimes it takes a while because maybe they're learning and growing on how to reach out as well. Sometimes people don't know how to reciprocate. And so, but when you get together, you have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're the one in this relationship to keep being the one to say, hey, do you want to meet? Hey, do you want to come over? Hey, make a phone call. Hey, do you want to do something together? I'd love to meet you for a tea. Sometimes we just have to keep on being the one to reach out.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, we have to use our discretion too, because sometimes when people keep saying no, 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 they are kind of saying, no, thank you, I don't really want to be your friend. So we have to use some discretion there too, where, you know, sometimes it is just gonna not be a fit, right? And that's okay. I think the thing that we're really trying to say here is that, like, in relationships, we have to give and take, but it's not about keeping score. Right? It's not about like,
exactly.
You know, I've called you once, so now you better call me, otherwise it's over. Because that's not really caring about somebody. They might be having the hardest week of their life and they just don't have the capacity to reach out and call this week. So they need you to give again, right?
And I'm going to say sometimes God lays a person on your heart. If you are constantly thinking about the same person over and over and this thought keeps popping into your mind, that's probably a nudge from the Holy Spirit saying it's time for you to reach out.
Mm-hmm. And I think we also have to talk about like the distinction, like there's different kinds of friendships, right? Sometimes we have these like irregular people in our life who are like, we kind of call them friends, but I wouldn't say that they're necessarily friends. We don't really have a term for them. Like maybe you have a really needy person in your circle of people who really needs your care and attention and encouragement, but they might not be that person who can give and take, right? Like they might be one of those, we call them irregular people. So you might need to continue being the one to reach out, being the one to contact them, being the one to check in on them, being the one to, you know, set up the coffee dates every week.
Because you're fulfilling that verse. That person needs your encouragement.
Yeah. And you might call them a friend, but I'm going to say we all need people in our life who can also like help us fill up our bucket, so to speak, too, right? We can't pour from an empty cup. We've all heard that before. And so I'm sure you have people in your life like that who are a little bit more of the irregular type of people. And we're not saying just like get rid of them.
No.
But what we're saying is that we need people in our lives who are true friends, like friendships that can go deep. And those types of relationships with the irregular people, they tend to be more one-sided, where, you know, they don't necessarily have the capacity to handle the deep things that are going on in our lives. They can only manage what they've got in their own, and they still need us, but we also need to seek other relationships as well then, so that we can, you know, have that pouring out as well and have somebody pouring into us.
Yeah, we need that fulfilling friendship. And so there are many different kinds of people in our lives. And when we want to be a true friend, we want to be able to give and take. And sometimes it's more giving and sometimes it's more taking, depending on what's going on and what stage of life we're in.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that we have to address too with this point is like, you know, sometimes relationships do change and you do grow apart from people, and that's okay too, right? Sometimes I think God is telling us like, you need to let this person go because you're in a different season of life than them. And that doesn't mean you don't love them. That doesn't mean you're rude to them. That doesn't mean you never check in on them. But sometimes people fall away in our lives for different reasons. And that might mean that it's time to go make a new friend.
That's right.
You know, I've had that actually happen quite a few times in the last few years, and it's been super challenging, right? You think that you have these solid relationships that are long-standing and you've got this deep history and deep connection, and then something happens, whether it's an actual thing or just changes in life and stages of life, and all of a sudden things have changed. And that's okay. It's hard, but it's okay. And so sometimes in that give and take, you can start to recognize that things are changing and that maybe it's time to go out and make a new friend for a new season of life.
That's right. Because have you ever heard this saying, like, you are like the people, like the 5 closest people around you, like you become like them. And so if you take a look at your life and the people you spend the most time with, you're probably a lot alike. Now, do you like what you're seeing of yourself? Do you want to seek out new friends, or do you want to develop these friends because you know that they're healthy friends?
So we know that the give and take aspect of relationships is like, you can't put a formula to it, right? It's kind of one of those things that we have to use our discretion and our wisdom and kind of figure it out as we go along. And I think pray about it too, right?
Try and give a little more than you take, because that's just going to build on your friendship.
Yeah, be the friend you wish you had.
That's right. I love that saying. Our third tip for being a good friend or being a better friend is called active listening. Now, what is active listening? And have you ever gone for coffee and you've been talking away, you're excited about sharing something, and somebody across from you is like not really listening? Like maybe they're scrolling on their phone, they're just like
Totally zoned out.
not engaged at all, and you've asked a question and they're looking at you like, what?
Or they pretend they know what's going on, but you know full well that they've been sitting there scrolling or talking to somebody, doing something else, and they were not paying attention to you and what you were saying.
Active listening is like crucial for having a good friend.
Yeah, because that feels horrible when somebody does that to you, right? And we are all guilty of it, every single one of us. So you know what? Let's take responsibility for that.
Yeah, and move on.
Yeah.
But let's begin to do some active listening. And I'm going to say we can learn this. It's a skill to learn. But we need to talk about it and figure out what it actually is. What is active listening?
Yeah, well, I think really when you boil it down, it means paying attention to what the other person is saying, using nonverbal and verbal communication cues. I know you're listening because you're sitting here, you're nodding, you're, saying
Eye contact,
right? All of these things that we do them inherently. We don't often even recognize that we're doing them or not doing them.
That's right.
But when we are actually listening to somebody, I do think those things typically happen pretty, without us needing to think about it, right? Involuntarily.
Yeah, that's right. Nonverbal communication can mean just nodding. It can mean using your eyes, like smiling, making a oh, that's awful, you have all these expressions that are facial.
Mm-hmm.
And
or even if somebody's trying to show you something, that you look at what they're trying to show you, then you know that the person's paying attention, right? There's so many nonverbal things that we just do, but when we are not paying attention, we don't do them. If you're busy scrolling on your phone and I'm trying to show you something, you're not going to look at what I'm showing you because you're busy on your phone.
It's not being a very good friend.
No.
It's not being a very good listener. In fact, it's not active listening.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite. It's it's not paying attention at all.
So we have to focus in. And I'm going to say if you're someone who's on your phone all the time when you're around friends, well, you probably might want to start thinking about it. You might want to start focusing in on actually active listening. So we talked a little bit about those nonverbal cues. Some other nonverbal cues are using your hands, your gestures, having this openness, non-judgmental attitude, which just means open hands. I was sitting with someone one time and I could tell how great of a listener this person was. And I asked him a question and he said, I like to, when I'm listening, I like to focus on active listening. And he said, what I do is I open my hands with palms up because it makes me open to what they're saying. And you can just put your hands up like that on your lap and it will be a reminder to really focus in on being open.
Mm-hmm. I think also, really practically, put your phone away. Put it in your purse and turn the ringer off. And if somebody needs to get a hold of you that badly, then maybe you shouldn't be having coffee or doing what you're doing, right?
At that time,
or when I go for coffee with one of my really good friends, we both leave our phones in our purses. And, there's the odd time where she's waiting for a phone call or I'm saying, my husband's going to call because I need to tell him this about the kids or whatever. There's times when, we have to pick up our phone or do something, but say that ahead of time so that there's a reason why your phone is on the counter and you're waiting for it to ring or go off, right? Otherwise, put it away. You're not going to miss out on anything so significant and so significantly more important than the person you're sitting with in that 1 hour time frame. right?
Absolutely.
Like we need to learn to put it away.
Yeah, we do. But there's so many other things. Like we talked about our posture, verbal and nonverbal things. Like you can just do things like when someone's saying something and they're sharing, you can go, you can agree, you can make these little utterances, which just shows that you're engaged, and that help you focus.
I think sometimes too, it's other distractions, like aside from our phones. I know for me, sometimes if I'm like at a restaurant or a coffee shop, I get busy watching what's happening at all the other tables, or if there's a kerfuffle somewhere, you're distracted watching that and trying to figure out what's happening. But that's not active listening to the person who's sitting across from you. And so, if you are that distracted, maybe just tell them for a second, you know what, I'm really distracted for a minute. Could you wait so that I can like refocus my attention? Because I really want to hear what you're saying.
Another thing to do, if you're stuck and you're with a new friend and you don't know what to talk about, have like some kind of an open-ended question that you could talk about for a little while. Like when you go in and you sit down and there's a lull, maybe ask them, say like, what was the best part of your week? Or have an open-ended question where it's not just a yes or no answer. So it can lead to more discussion.
Or even just things like, you could say, oh, I'm thinking about going on a holiday. Where's the best place that you've ever gone on a vacation, right? So that you can kind of open up the doors to get to know them a little bit better and a little bit deeper in a way where like, most people with a question like that or with what was the best part of your week, if you give them a chance, they will start talking and chances are they'll keep talking. That's another thing too, is that like, don't cut people off. And that is so challenging, right? Like we cut people off so fast and so easily because we hear something they say, like when we are active listening, we hear something they say and then we're like, oh, but yeah, that reminds me of this or that, and la la la, and then all of a sudden we've taken over.
Yeah.
And that happens so often. And sometimes, interjecting is okay. But for the most part, we want to let the other person talk and share what they're trying to share and not take the conversation over.
Yeah. So active listening is all of those things that we just talked about. It's being engaged and it's being focused on the person that we're listening to and not making the conversation all about me.
Easier said than done. We just also want to tell you about our YouTube membership. If you would like to support us and support our channel, and if you enjoy our content, then in our membership community, you get more of it. You can go ahead and join. The link is down below in the description. The price point is $6.99 Canadian, $5.99 US per month. It's all done through YouTube, so it's secure payment and all that kind of stuff. We actually have nothing to do with the payment. It's all done through YouTube. But yeah, go ahead and check that out. You can be a shining light and support our channel.
Thanks for being here, and we just want to say again, remember that you are a beautiful woman chosen for greatness.
And we believe in you.